Hello anime fans, this is your captain speaking. Today we'll be exploring the story of Rokudanashi Majutsu Kushi to Akashic Records. If you enjoy it, give it a thumbs up. The work begins with a girl using magic on a boy who was injured. She told him to keep it a secret as the use of magic outside of the academy is forbidden. Her name is Rumia Tinjal and a girl shouts her name, but it was her best friend Sistina Fibble. The two are on their way to the Magic Academy while commenting on Sistina's favorite teacher having been fired. Then, a boy came running and shouting for everyone to get out of the way. The two are scared and Sistina uses a wind magic to make the boy fly up to the sky and fall into a water fountain. They approach to see if he was okay until he gets up and makes a heartthrob pose while flipping his hair back. He looks at Rumia as he approached and starts to examine each part of her body, and as he was about to say something, Sistina becomes angry and intervenes, making him go to the sky again, and they run away. When they were already at the academy, the students noticed that it was time but the teacher had not yet appeared. Then he arrives and when Sistina and Rumia look, they realize that it is the same boy they saw when they were on their way to the academy. He tries to disguise himself by saying that they were mistaken and starts to introduce himself. His name is Glean Radars and he will be their temporary teacher for a month. He takes the chalk and starts writing on the board but had written that the class would be self-study and decides to take a nap. This happens because he was recommended by Salika Arphonia. When the girls were changing, Glean opens the door and says it was a very cliché event and that he would record that image in the back of his mind. Embarrassed, they hit him. Sistine starts to get irritated because he is not teaching in a proper way and stands up from her seat and goes towards Glean. She removes her glove and throws it in his face, meaning she challenged him to a duel. She says she was tired of the way he treats magic with disrespect and that as the next head of the Fibble family, she could not just sit back. Glean remembers a person who was similar to Sistine and grabs the glove and says he accepts the duel. They go outside and Glean says they will use only the shockwave magic.
Usaram apenas a magia de Shock Bolt. Destiny, mesmo com medo, se prepara e lança sua magia que ia rapidamente em direção a Glean e acabou acertando em cheio, fazendo-o cair duro no chão. Ele se levanta e continua tentando vencê-la, mas o resultado era sempre o mesmo. No dia
a girl arrives near him to ask a question but Sistine interrupts saying it was a waste of time to ask him. They both start arguing about the principles and origin of magic and Glean says that magic is only useful for humanity to take people's lives and Sistine slaps his face while crying and leaves the room. Later, Glean was reflecting on what he had said and sees Rumia trying to build a magic circle. He goes to her and teaches her the right way to activate it. Rumia is completely happy to see that and she says her goal was for magic to be beneficial for everyone and also because there was someone special she wanted to thank for saving her from evil wizards 3 years ago. For Sistine, it was to fulfill a promise she made to her grandfather to reach the castle of Malgalius and reveal the mysteries that it contains. The next day, Glean apologizes to Sistine and decides to start the class. He talks about the Bolt Shock and everyone is impressed with the ability and variety of that magic. He says that the real meaning of magic is the learning about the human heart and mind, and also says that words can really have power. He decides to demonstrate this and goes to Sistine and calls her White Cat and says he had fallen in love with her since the first time he saw her. The result of the demonstration was her becoming completely blushing, and since that day everyone started to like Glean's classes. Salika meets Glean and tells him that the next day he will be the only teacher giving a lesson and warns him not to do anything inappropriate with the students. At night, some men were preparing a plan they would apply at the Magic Academy. In the morning, Glean was late again and when he got close to the academy, he realized there was some kind of magical barrier. He told whoever was nearby to reveal themselves, and a man revealed himself and said he would take Glean's life. In the classroom, a mysterious young man was looking for Rumia. He threatened everyone until Rumia revealed herself and went with him. Another young man took Sistine and forced her to do indecent things, but Glean found them. Glean entered, and the man tried to use magic, but it was nullified because Glean was using his original spell, the Crazy World, when magic made at a certain distance will be sealed if it is used close to him. But it also includes his own magic, and the truth is that magic was not all he knew how to use. He beat the man with a combat style used by the Imperial military. Glean called Salika and told her that researchers of divine wisdom had invaded the academy, and she warned that she would try to get help as quickly as possible. Sistine ran to try and help Rumia, but Glean stopped her. She cried, but he comforted her and said everything would be alright and he would save everyone. Suddenly, some bone golems were summoned by one of the invaders. Glean attacked them, and Sistine used magic to amplify his strength. They ran, and Glean told her to use an advanced magic while he held them off. She started to cast the magic, and when it was ready, she used it against the golems. Glean took advantage of the opportunity and started to cast a black magic spell and fired, defeating everyone. But Glean became weak since this magic exceeded his limit. At this moment, another invader named Reiki appeared. Glean asked Sistine if she could cast the Dispel Force magic to disarm Reiki's magic, but she said that even using all her power, she couldn't. So Glean put his hand on Sistine and pushed her, and since Reiki was using his magic, he couldn't depend much on the crazy world unless his magic was unstable. They started to fight, and Glean managed to dodge the swords and tried to use a magic spell, but it was nullified. And when Reiki was going to cast another magic, Glean took advantage of the opportunity and used the crazy world to cast another magic. But Reiki managed to react in time and counterattacked, hitting Glean. Even injured, Glean used the Dispel Force, but he was too weak, and that's when Sistine appeared and used the Dispel Force, deactivating the magic. Glean quickly grabbed a sword and advanced towards Reiki and hit him. Before Reiki was defeated, he said that a short time ago in the court mage squad, there was a skilled mage who took other people's lives. He was about to say his code name, but he fell defeated, leaving us curious. Glean needed to save the other students, but he couldn't stand up. Sistine held his hand and used magic while he said he wanted to be a mage of justice. But shortly after that, both of them were unconscious. Sometime later, Glean wakes up with Salika calling and the two discuss the situation. Glean then goes to the tower where the teleport circle is located, and upon arrival, he finds Rumia and the man who was there, who was the former teacher. The former teacher says that Rumia will be teleported to the organization and that he was using his own soul to generate enough mana to explode the entire academy. With no option, Glean runs and begins to undo the magic circle layer by layer using his own blood. Rumia asks why he would go so far as to risk his life, and Glean says that his purpose was to become a justice mage and that he would not give up even after losing all of his life. Glean reaches his limit, but Rumia is able to reach her hand through the barrier and give some of her mana to Glean. Rumia was actually a divine amplifier who had the ability to increase the power of whoever touched her. Glean returns to 100% and finishes the magic circle, saving Rumia and giving the former teacher a punch. In this way, Glean saves all of his students and finds his goal to continue being the teacher. The next day, Glean decides who will participate in each category for the competition that would take place next week. During the break, Glean sees that classes 1 and 2 were arguing over who would use the place to train when Glean arrived. He encountered Professor Hallie and the two started teasing each other. Glean got carried away and ended up betting 3 months' salary that his class would win. At night, Rumia was remembering the time she was saved by a mage while asking her mother not to abandon her. Then came the day of the competition. No one expected it, but in the flight category, Glean's class managed to get 3rd place and continued to win several other stages. Then came the mental defense, where only Rumia would participate, and a boy from another class told her to give up, but she was confident. When it started, several competitors could not resist, and in the end, only Rumia and another student were left. The Count uses the Might Break magic, but Rumia ends up on her knees. Then Glean approaches and says that Class 2 will give up this round. But when everyone realizes that the opponent was standing but unconscious, the victory went to Rumia. From afar, 2 people were observing Glean, and the guy named Albert says that there were suspicious people among the Imperial Guard and that they would probably try something against the Queen. Glean had not been eating since the beginning of the competition, but Rumia appears and gives him a basket of sandwiches that Sistine had made, but she was not there because she was too embarrassed to deliver. Suddenly someone appears in front of the 2 of them, and when Glean looks, it was the Queen, and what brought her to the 2 of them was her daughter Rumia, whom she calls Aliona, but Rumia backs away and says she is not that person and leaves. Rumia is now part of the Fibble family and refuses to accept the Queen as her mother because she abandoned her. Glean goes after Rumia, and when he finds her, she starts talking about how she was afraid to face the Queen and did not understand her feelings very well. Some guards approached and said that Rumia is accused of conspiring to take the life of the Queen. Glean opposes, but the guards knock him down and take Rumia. They tie her to a tree and say they will hit her vital point, but Glean appears and defeats the guards. Glean takes Rumia in his arms and starts running away. He decides to ask for Celica's help, but it turns out that she and the queen were surrounded by guards, and the queen's life was in danger because she had been cursed with a necklace that had been given to her. Glean needed to reach the queen to save her, but Albert and RE=Al appeared behind him. RE=Al advanced to attack Glean, but he was able to dodge. She then used alchemy magic to summon a sword and attacked Glean, who summoned ice magic. From afar, Albert began to cast shot magic, where he fired but hit RE=Al, who fell face first to the ground. It turns out that the two of them were great friends since Glean was part of the Imperial Army. They shared what they knew about the situation and joined forces to save everyone involved. In the competition, Glean's team was getting anxious without him until Albert and RE=Al appeared and said that Glean had left them in charge. They returned to compete and continued to win each round, thus reaching Team 1. They then reached the final, which was 3 duels, and Glean's team continues to win until Sistine's turn to fight. She starts by launching her Storm Wall magic, where she traps the enemy with the wind chain and finishes with the blast, thus winning for Team 2. When the representative professor of Team 2 approaches the queen to receive the medal, it turns out that the two of them revealed themselves, and when we thought they were Albert and RE=Al, in fact, it was Glenn and Rumia. They had swapped places with each other, and before the guards approached, Celica raised a barrier. Glean explains to the queen what had happened, but it turns out that she was being forced to say that they would have to take Rumia's life. Rumia is completely devastated with her mother's response, but Glean realizes that something was wrong and notes that it could be the necklace she was wearing. He asks her if she wouldn't be better off taking it off, and tells Rumia that her mother actually loved her very much. He advances towards the commander who hits him with a sword strike, but at that moment the queen had taken off the necklace and the reason she didn't lose her life when she took it off was because of the magic card, the Fool's Arcana, which Glean uses. The queen approaches Rumia and apologizes for saying all those lies and the two reconcile again. There were infiltrators inside the Empire just like Eleanor and the member of the Divine Wisdom researchers. She had said that Princess Hermione only served for the Akashic records and managed to escape from Albert and RE=Al. At night, when Glenn and Rumia were going to the other students, Rumia thanks him for not forgetting his promise he made 3 years ago when he saved her. When they arrive, Glean is greeted by his students and Sistine, who was drunk, grabs him while she's all ditzy. When Glean receives the bill, is shocked because there goes the money he had won from the competition. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews of the best anime. A kiss from your captain, and until next time.